I really think so.
So today, and I think all of you have heard from Patrick. It's might been some time since you've heard from him or seen him, but we really love having him back. We were so lucky that he continued to stay after Sandy left, after Mary Kay left, and so um, he, I think, always brings something new every time I hear him speak. He is so passionate and really truly loves what he does and wants other people to love what they're doing, and
Yeah.
this, the support that they can get and give to people. And so, does anybody have any memories of Patrick, maybe that they want to share, or ideas that he's
Well, yes, I do.
that maybe were new to
I
you?
remember when he um presented in our partners year 32, and it was a bad if it was bad snow or windstorm, I don't remember. And he flew in, then he presented, then he had to leave again. I don't know if that's a really big thing, but
Yeah, he's dedicated for sure. He came to fly in for those who weren't in class this year, and the storm was really really bad.
yeah,
When he was
yeah,
coming in, and so he didn't get in until he was supposed to be done speaking on Friday.
yes,
And so he came in on
yes,
Saturday, and then he gave it everything that we could ask for, and
yeah, yeah.
he was very kind about it. We really appreciated that. So
He was a lot shorter than I thought he would be.
shorter.
Yeah.
Oh, I think he's kind of tall. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. Hmm. As I think his head went up to my nose.
Does anybody have anything else they want to share about Patrick? Has anybody read his books? Any of his books?
I This is
No.
Sandy. I read his books, and I just want to share that Patrick is a very compassionate presenter, and very much believes in what he presents. And most of what he tells you, he's tried. It's tried and true. And one thing that you need to know about Patrick is very approachable. If you have questions, anything, he welcomes emails. He welcomes conversations. He's just I can't say enough good things about him. And through my years with him, having presented to partners, he's brought a lot of vitality, vigor, energy, and a lot of knowledge. So I think whatever you take from Patrick, you're very lucky to have it.
Yeah, I would agree very much. And his information is at the very bottom of this page, which you also got it. Oh, sorry, now I did this thing. It's at the very bottom of this page. So it should be on the lower left-hand side on your screen, I think. But if you want to contact him, you can reach out to him and ask any questions that you have. Um, yeah, he's really a great speaker. He should be popping on here in just a few minutes. But today we're going to talk about special education and inclusion. And this is something that tends to be pretty big and that you would think we wouldn't have to be fighting for anymore, but we do. Who has had kids that have gone through like special education or them themselves been through special education?
I've had friends, and my
Right.
nephew has gone through special
Mhm.
education.
Okay.
And for having autism, he is very smart. He's like I was when I was in school.
Hmm.
I mean, I took regular public school, but I mean, I think they're, that's what they're doing with him. But the
Yeah.
only problem is he's in summer kids club,
Hmm.
and he only makes it through about half a day. Then my mom has to go pick him up.
Yeah. That's okay. It's starting somewhere. Maybe it can
Yeah,
build up his
mm,
day.
yeah, that is
Mhm.
very true. But I was curious, with autism, is there a way we can like discipline him?
I am not an expert in that area. I would maybe talk with a therapist or maybe another parent who has a child with
Yeah,
autism.
yeah.
Jill, did you want to share?
Yep. I have myself that was in special ed and on an IEP, and both of my kids are too.
Okay. So you have a little bit of experience from when you went through it now, and now you're
My
working with your
nephew is
children.
9. My
Amanda,
nephew is 9.
9.
Yes, I was just going to add I have a daughter who went through it. She was in birth to 3 and then was on an IEP all the way through high school.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Kevin?
My sons went through it, and my daughter was early childhood from 6 months to age 3. Then she was tested and was too smart for special ed and too young for regular ed. And now, as an adult, she's a special ed teacher.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, that's cool.
That's awesome.
Well, congrats.
Yeah, it's hard. Sometimes kids fall in that zone where, like, you're smart, but you're not old enough, or you're not smart enough, but you're old enough. And they just kind of fall into this crack of like, well, where do you go? Where do we put you? Who helps you? Which is always a struggle for me because they're children. Like, you should just do the best that you can and educate them.
Well, you see, that's with me. People ask that. It's like, I have a brain injury, but that don't mean I need help all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So give me some credit that I can do stuff on my own.
Yep.
Because when other people do stuff for me, well, that makes me think, well, other people might think that I'm not cognitively stable enough
Mm-hmm.
or whatever.
Yeah. Does anybody else have a kid or themselves or know someone or work with special education or inclusion?
So looking back on my daughter, I think the reason she was developmental delayed was she was following her brother's examples until she got into early childhood special ed and surpassed them and came the big sister to older brothers.
Right. Well, yeah, because I mean, that's 100% true. Your kids, they always say the second kid, they always learn faster because they were watching the first kid. Or,
Because she was the youngest of the 3.
Right. So she was watching them, watching Big Brothers, figuring out what they're doing.
I've actually got an idea. I want you guys to tell me if it's a bad or whatever. Would that be okay? I turn some mood music on in the background softly.
I would wait while we're on Zoom just because it would be difficult for people to hear, especially when we have a presenter. Thank you for asking. I appreciate that.
No problem. I just know that with these meetings, they get kind of boring, and having some mood music on really would help.
You could turn your music on as long as you mute your mic. That would be my
Yeah.
No, so you can turn something on, just mute, just mute so that everybody else.
Yes. Okay. Okay, never mind. I guess it's not a good idea.
Devin?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, this is Sandy. You guys talking about special education and stuff. I'm old compared to most of you, and my husband is older too, but he wasn't diagnosed till after he was an adult with dyslexia, and he was put into he's 80 years old, so years and years ago he was put into a special ed class at that time that was secluded, out of the way, and he was made fun of. He still has really I don't want to call it flashbacks, but really bad memories of people making fun of him and telling him he was stupid and couldn't do things, until he got diagnosed and realized as an adult what was going on. And Patrick, during this presentation, you guys will help bring forward of how to make sure that doesn't happen nowadays. And it's sad, but it still is happening in places. So Patrick will come forth with great ideas for that.
Yeah, and I was going to say, and then kids are the worst. They don't have any empathy most of the time. I'm not going to say all the time, because some kids get sad and, but oh well, I guess. And I mean, I don't know what kids.
Right. And I feel like sometimes, especially like in the Midwest, we're kind of blocked off from some new ideas, and it takes them a lot longer to trickle in down into, the middle of the country. And so by the time we've finally caught up, they're now on to new things. And so I think that can kind of always make us feel a little bit behind.
Well, and then I was going to say, when other people think we still receive um we go by stagecoach and buggy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, Dr. Patrick Schwarz has went ahead and entered our group here. So we
I'm
were just doing a little
Patrick.
bit of introductions and just kind of talking a little bit about our experience with special education. So I will go ahead and turn host over to you if that's okay.
Hi, thank you, Devin. I'm really excited to be here. And before we get started, I just want to make sure that I can share my screen and all those important things so that we make this happen effectively and in a quality manner. I'm really happy to see all the participants today. How are things in South Dakota, everybody?
Well, it's hot.
It's hot too.
Yeah,
I'm coming from
triple digits.
Chicagoland, so it's hot too as well here.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna do a little sharing. I'm just gonna see if my screen sharing works. And let's do this. And I'm gonna just gonna change a couple of things in terms of settings. I'm gonna put this in a slideshow from the
Yeah.
beginning. Can everybody see my
Yes.
screen slide?
Yes.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so I love it when things work on Zoom. So that's wonderful. So, um, Devin, are you with us for the whole session here?
I will be, yes.
Okay, awesome. So, something just to share with people in terms of the way I usually conduct business on Zoom. One of the things today is we're going to be talking about 5 powerful ways that make inclusive education work. And they are things we talked about if you were with me in a partner session before. So, it's review and it's kind of done in a little bit different way, which makes it exciting and interesting. And because of the hour time period, there will be times I ask people to participate. What I was going to request is if you have questions or comments, I'm going to earmark a time at the end that people can bring that forward. And Devin, if anything comes up on chat, if that can be collected for the end too as well, that would be wonderful because that way I'll make sure I get all the important content in. It's such an important topic. Does that sound okay? Or is that business too different than usual, Devin?
No, nope, that's perfect.
And I
Okay.
wanted to add, I want to apologize because I might be a frontal or because of my brain injury. I have a tendency to ask or whatever. But yes, okay. Thanks, Patrick.
Yeah, so throughout the time, if you have questions or comments and you're able to put them on chat, that is wonderful because I will make sure everybody has a voice and that we answer questions. I just want to make sure we get the content in because, as far as I'm concerned, your time is very important. And just want to make this work for everybody. So we're going to make everything work. It's just kind of an interesting route to get there. Does that sound okay?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. And if you're not able to use chat during the time that I'm presenting, there will be a time people can ask audio questions on Zoom at the end. So if you're able to take notes during the time in terms of your questions and comments, there will be a time at the end where that is all good. Also, to after we're done, I will make a request for people to let me know if people want the slides, which I'll send to Devin if that's the case that people want them. I like sending them after so people have a chance to kind of evaluate whether they are the right thing for you or if the session as is work for you, it's all good. So thank you very much. And right now it's about 1:20. Devin, are we waiting for any people to join us at 1:30?
Nope, you
Because
can go ahead and get started whenever you're ready. Because
okay,
we actually go 1 to 3, so I give us a little bit of time before and a little bit of after. So if you go over 2:30, that's okay too.
okay, awesome. I'll try to be respectful of everybody's time because I know you have a certain way of doing this, and I'm really honored to be part of it. And I also want to honor the way that you do business. So hopefully that all works. And again, I can stay a bit beyond 2:32 for questions and comments as well. So thank you for that invitation. So getting us started. So this is the refresher course for successful inclusive education. Devin, I think I've done this for South Dakota partners pretty close to when it first started. It was a few years after it first started, but I've been through several different partners, coordinators. Devin, you're doing a fantastic job. By the way, it's absolutely lovely to work with you. So was really excited to get this invitation because in a sense, it's kind of like going to South Dakota while being in your own house. So thank you for that. Okay, we're going to move on with the slides. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to stop my share with slides for a minute. And I see that we have lots of people. One of the ways I like to get started, which I do for partners, is to just warm us up a little bit. So I am going to ask the brave souls to do a little bit of kickboxing on camera. Also, I'm seeing my friend Sandy is with us. So hi, Sandy, that is wonderful. I'm thrilled that we can reunite this way. So we're just going to do a few kickboxing moves to get us warmed up. The first move, if you can mirror what I'm doing, it's just great. So this is bringing your head down and up. So, oh my gosh, I think I just heard a crack. So it's probably indicated that I need this, that I have not done enough of this today. So is everybody happy to be here, first of all? Oh, thank you for your nods of affirmation. I appreciate that. And our next one is bringing your head right and left. So just following what I'm doing on the screen. So do you think I'm weird? Okay.
Maybe just a little.
I really appreciate this. So thank you for your affirmation once again. The next move is bringing your shoulders up and down. Oh, this actually feels good. What do you think of this so far? Yeah, I'm with you. We haven't done it long enough today to make things work. So hopefully it will all work out. So the shoulders
Yeah.
up and down is an affirming thing. Now, this is actually my favorite move. It's just rolling the shoulders back. And
Yeah.
to me, this is probably opening up some things up, which it feels really good for me. And then everybody, this is a cool move. So it's bringing both hands up, and these are called jabs. So it's going to look like you're punching your screen out. So what I'm doing is I'm doing one hand at a time. And
Yeah.
this is cool. These are kickboxing moves now. And what I'm seeing is looking good for the people who are daring to share their screens. So some brave souls.
Well,
Now, the next move is called hook. This is Sandy's last name. And it looks like you're punching the side of your screen out. So you're making a hook motion with your arm. Actually, this feels pretty good. I'm liking this one. South Dakota brings me good luck, so I'm happy to be doing this. The next move is called uppercut. So it looks like you're punching to the top of the screen. Now, there's just a heads up, nobody punch themselves because we don't want anybody to get hurt as a result of this. And I'm going to thank you. I think this is a yoga move, namaste. So thank you
Yeah,
for doing what you just did. I really appreciate your participation. I'm going to share my screen again. So we go back
thank you, bud.
to the slides. And I think this is the slide we were on. Hopefully everybody has seen that okay. So thank you and welcome for doing the kickboxing. My time for with you, I should say, for you with you is from 1:30 to 2:30. The good thing is we're starting a little bit early and I'm able to take questions and comments after the time. So thank you for that. I'm going to ask people to, until we do the question time, is to please mute your microphones. So you'll see that on as a Zoom feature with that. And then when we get to the time for questions at the end, I'll ask people to unmute. Remember, you can do chat and questions visually at any time, and Devin's going to help with collecting some of those things and representing people because I'm dealing with all this content right now, which I'm thrilled to do. This is a quote, and this is a quote I just love. It is from Alice Walker, who, if you've seen the movie The Color Purple before or read the book The Color Purple, she's the author of that particular book, and that was adapted into a screenplay with I think it was a long time ago, and I think it was perhaps Oprah Winfrey's first movie. So here is the quote: "To the old ones of my childhood who taught me the most lesson of all, the most important lesson of all, that I did not need to be perfect to be loved, that no one does." So would anybody who's perfect please raise your hand? So I'm not seeing any hands raised. It's not that we're perfect, and that's not what we're striving for, is we are all human beings. There's things that make us a human being that bring forward abilities and challenges. And we all have abilities and challenges. So no one is perfect, and that's not what we're talking about today. We are talking about how to make people belong, how to make people included, which we think is a civil right, and it is certainly a big tenet and policy of partners in policy making. So we talk about things such as inclusion and social justice and belonging. So I think that we're dealing with graduates here is these things well. And so we're bringing these things forward for us today when we talk about inclusion. So one of the things that I found in going to different partners sessions across the country and in different countries, that there are a lot of self-advocates and families who have found inclusion hard to achieve. Now, my definition of inclusion is everybody belongs everywhere with everyone else in our schools and our community. And if you remember back to the time I was with all of you in Partners in Policy Making, is one thing that we talked about is inclusion is an issue that goes way beyond schools. So there are so many different forms of inclusion. So thinking about our housing, where we live, is a form of inclusion. For those of us who have jobs or are employed, our workplace, employment is a form of inclusion. Also, thinking about the different ways we all use the community or who we are representing uses the community, and thinking about things such as, we would say, using different stores and businesses and also different clubs and recreational types of things. is that we're thinking about the community, and community use is a form of inclusion. And then there's lots of other things that partners members have shared are different forms of inclusion that go beyond school. So for like example, when you think about if you are utilizing religious worship in the form that you choose to have, that is also a type of inclusion. One of the things that I was part of is working with different religious leaders in terms of talking about how their religious communities support a wide range of people who have different abilities and disabilities, which really, if you think of all of us, we have different abilities and disabilities. Partners is very much landmark in the way that we are advocating for everyone to be part of the community, to be included. So today we're going to focus a little bit on schools because it's one of the partners' curriculum areas. But remember, inclusion is a much bigger issue than just schools, as we talk about. So if we think about some things, one of the things that I think probably everybody who has joined us today had as kind of a partners boot camp is you had a boot camp on the law, thinking about the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. IDEA is the acronym. And do all of you remember John Hamilton? Maybe you're having a refresher on the law too as well. That might be one of the areas. But I'm bringing that forward. Now, when that law came forward, thinking about the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act in 1995, and then there were reauthorizations later on of that particular law, it was landmark because it was the first law that said everybody. So it was the free, appropriate public education for all individuals. So it used to be prior to that based on IQ for a while, and there were different types of criteria. But all of a sudden, in 1975, we have a law that says everybody. And so that was a big change. And that was a great thing. However, there were a few things about this particular landmark law that were problematic and made inclusion sometimes hard to achieve. So the first one is that students were diagnosed and assessed and identified based on their deficits. So when we talk about deficits, it's kind of not a great term. It's not one of my favorite words. It's kind of a glass half empty way of looking at disabilities. So I don't think disability is a bad word, but when we look at it as deficits or a negative thing, it can be seen as something that is more negative. Actually, when I think of disabilities, I think about part of that too is everybody that has disabilities has abilities. And a really great way to consider including someone is looking at their abilities and their interests and their passions. That's where I start, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. So the way that students receive special education services was based on their deficits. So it was looking at diagnosis, assessment, and identification. And at the time when this law came forward, I think a way that well-meaning people thought that we should educate people with disabilities is let's put them all together with people who are like them. And that way we can address their needs. And if we go slower and more simple, and we can greater address what their particular needs are. What was problematic about that? not everybody's the same. And actually, the research has shown if we look at how we can have good models for individuals, how we can adapt, and how we can support people and do something we're going to talk about called universal design for learning that creates access for everybody into education. It's a much better practice rather than separating people based on disability. So that is the current research for people that is best practice. Why is the current research that is best practice not happening for everybody? I think one thing that is part of that law is that there's a part of the law that says the free, appropriate, public mandated education in the least restrictive environment. And so, what the least restrictive environment brings forward is it's a judgment call for an individual education plan team. And to me, the least restrictive environment is the general classroom with the right support system that has special educators, related services, something that we're going to talk about that is called co-teaching, which has general educators and special educators that teach together, which is happening in pretty much every school I work with these days. That is a great way to make inclusion work. So we're going to talk about more about that too as well. Another thing that was problematic with the law, even though it was landmark and talked about all people, is that there were separate budgets for general education and separate budgets for special education, which meant things like separate buses, separate entrances, separate classrooms, because the funding for those different things came from separate budgets. So this resulted in things like a brother and sister who were maybe a grade apart going to the same school, having a separate bus. One would be the separate special education bus, and the other would be the general bus. Jonathan Mooney has a book called The Short Bus, which maybe some people have read before. And when he was a little kid, he was identified as needing special ed services, and he went on a separate bus from his brother and sister. And actually, in the book, he talks about how that was not a great thing for him, and he felt that he had some self-esteem issues because of that. So thinking about something that can be problematic is those separate budgets that doesn't look at how we support everybody. It looks at people in a separate way. And this created a different system for special education and general education. And the problem with that is, even though we know the best practice in research is inclusion, which I'm going to talk about 5 things that make it work successfully, is even though we know that it's a best practice, in most school districts in our country, there are still separate budgets for special ed and general ed. And a lot of times they don't cross lines, and it makes it difficult to come together with educating all students. So that's my little soapbox to start with. However, it sounds like that it's a little dismal, but there is good news. So I want to share that good news right now, because I meet people from all over the country. So I meet teachers, I meet students who have become self-advocates, adults, leaders, parents, and other constituents who are going beyond and transcending what might be taking place and creating life outcomes. And so I have a question. This is a time that people can answer with chat or take off your microphone. There are some times I'm asking for participation. I'm interested in maybe three things from our group. Anything that you do for somebody that creates possibility. So it turns disability into possibility. I want to give you an example is that there was a partners member that said, my son or daughter or my student, this person was also a teacher, achieves social relationships due to an after school gaming club that was started. So feel free to look at what is something you do that turns disability into possibility. Feel free to put it on chat or to join in with audio. And it might be taking your microphone off of mute. Devin, I'm interested to see what people bring forward. So we'll give a minute for that. I can stop the share for a minute too, so we might be able to see people a little better. So something you do that turns disability into possibility, my example was an after-school gaming club that a student with an IEP joined the gaming club. And he advocated for that particular gaming club. So that is a form of inclusion and turned disability into possibility. Devin, has anything come forward?
Nope, I don't see anything yet.
Okay. So I'll give some more examples of turning disability, into possibility. So thinking about first of all is another one that a partners member shared is that something that was started in her school was a lunch buddy club that brought together some students from the classroom that the student was involved with for lunchtime that the student got to choose. And that particular student could bring things forward about supports that were recommended by other students. So things that were needed and supports and things like that. So they discussed that. That's another example. Are there any other examples from our group? Devin, I think you have something.
Yeah, we do have one. Sandy said that her husband is a 4th degree black belt in Taekwondo, and he encourages individuals of all abilities to come to his classes. He has had students with learning disabilities, physical disabilities, etc. And she says she has taught a student who, he has taught a student who is blind, several who have autism as well.
That is music to my ears. And Sandy, I think I saw something about this on social media too. So thinking about it is when you consider your partner's background and what you bring forward as possibilities, is thinking about how do we make a difference for people in the community. And that example with the karate is just a beautiful thing. And sometimes it becomes a family type of thing. So Sandy, I think, certainly brought some ideas forward to her husband, which, as you see, is when we share that kind of wealth, is inclusion can actually spiral and happen in a very positive way. I love that example. Devin, did anything else come forward?
I don't have any from anybody else, but I have an example.
Okay, awesome.
So I was on the South Dakota State Fair Board last year. I don't know how I got on it, but I was on it. And so we were talking about like Disability Awareness Day where it's like the fair entry for it's specific for individuals with disabilities. And so I made a suggestion with something that we had growing up. It was a cold cabin, had air conditioner and drinks and stuff so people could go in. And so I was like, why don't we have something like this? People need a break. They want to enjoy it, but sometimes it's too much. And so the state fair actually, I think, I don't know if it was just mobile this last year, but they plan on building a permanent cabin at the state fair for things like that for people to take a break.
Beautiful. And thanks for that advocacy, because we think that our ideas and action and our advocacy can put things forward. I think I saw another comment maybe come through chat, Devin.
Yes, Sandy said he also does butt ball, which is volleyball for people in chairs.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's outstanding. So thinking about Sandy is walking the talk, Devin is walking the talk. So I'm so impressed with that. So thank you for those examples. I'm going to share the screen again. So I appreciate that. And thank you for that. So the next one is I'm going to ask for people to share your screen if you're able to, and see if we can come up with a poll. Devin, you might be able to help me with this, but I'm just interested is with our diversity, we're going to talk about chocolate. So what's your favorite chocolate? Do you like milk? Do you like dark? Do you like white? Or do you like no chocolate? So I'm going to go through these one at a time. And if you can share a screen or give an audio type of affirmation, how many people like milk, first of all? So I would tell you my favorite is all chocolate, but this is asking you to commit to one kind. So it's a little bit different. How many people are milk chocolate lovers? Devin, do we have an idea?
Sorry, I got one response, got two, three. Looks like three.
Okay. So thank you for that. And feel free to put more responses in chat. How many people are dark chocolate? Okay. I'm seeing Kevin raising his hand, and I think Molly raised her hand too. So I'm definitely seeing some of our participants. Devin, are we getting more for dark?
Two, I think, just two.
Okay. I'm actually joining that one, and I'll explain why in just a minute. But again, my favorite is all chocolate. Does anybody come forward for white?
And we've Heather says all white one.
Heather, okay. Thank you for that, Heather. And just one for that. And is anybody no chocolate? And if you are no chocolate, I'd be interested in finding out what is your go-to. So we're looking at our diversity. So sometimes I learn new things I need to try from people. So feel free to put it on chat too. Devin, are you seeing anybody for no chocolate?
Nope, I'm not seeing anybody for no chocolate.
I actually put forward a couple of things. I have a couple of artifacts here. So there's a couple of things. What I found out is I was milk chocolate all the way. I used to be milk chocolate all the way, but then some people turned me on to the right dark chocolate. So one, you can find this in most grocery stores. It's Lindt dark chocolate with a touch of sea salt, and another go-to is Andes mints. So love those, and I think those are dark chocolate. I think you can get some different types too. So thank you for sharing that. Now, what I want to say is we've got lots of different forms of diversity, and thinking about diversity with ability and disability, our goal is to be able to bring forward everybody being everywhere with everyone else. And again, that's my definition of inclusion. So thanks for your feedback with that. And I think all these different types of chocolate can coexist in the world just fine, as we just shared. So the 5 things we want to talk about today that help to make inclusion work. The first one is a belief that diversity is good. The second one is embracing learner passions and interests. We'll talk about that. The third one is one of my very favorite supports. It's called Universal Design for Learning. The fourth one is I'm actually going to give you quite an update on co-teaching, because what I'm finding in all my years working in the field and working with schools is co-teaching is emerging as one of the top ways that inclusion is coming forward in the school world. And I want you to all be on top of this. And the fifth one is a transformational process for system change. So I'm going to start talking about these. The first one, diversity is good. There are a few concepts that I want to talk about, which I think people generally learned in partners in policymaking. The first one is person first language. So rather than bringing the label first, so saying disabled person, is we're talking about a person with a disability. Why is that important? Because we're saying that the person comes first. I want to also give a disclaimer statement. There's something called disability studies where self-advocates have reclaimed their label they may have had when they were a student in school. So they may do just the opposite of person first language and say, I am disabled, because they're claiming back their label. So you may hear people sometimes saying, I'm an autistic. When I refer to it, I say, I work with Charlie, who's a person with autism. And so people with disabilities sometimes may claim their label back and use a form of language where they own their label. And I think this is very confusing for us. But here's my belief, is when we use language, we should use it in an informed, respectful type of way. So both person first language and disability studies are an informed, respectful way. The people that are using the owning label are self-advocates. So if you're not a self-advocate, maybe you're an advocate for your son or daughter, is we don't typically use that language that is disability studies language. And also a big part of using respectful language is not using outdated language. So things that are outdated, I think people learned this, some of you from Kathy Snow, things such as saying handicapped. We're not using that term anymore. Another one, and it just makes me cringe to use this word, but I'm going to say it, is it's very outdated. It's the R word. So we don't use the term retarded anymore. What do we use instead? A person with an intellectual disability or a person with maybe a cognitive challenge. But there are forms of disrespectful language that I think people learned from your partner's experience. So respectful language is very important. Zero reject, what that means is everybody has equal value. So thinking about this, when we consider our law, the free, appropriate, public, mandated education for all people, all means all. So all are served. Sometimes people are fighting for inclusion within that, but all get served. So that's zero reject. We don't reject anybody. The third one is to presume competence. So maybe you meet a person, for example, that you don't know very well, and they may communicate in a different manner. Maybe they use a communication system. And maybe there's some other things that we don't know about that person that we're getting to know them or we are learning about them. In every case, what we call the least dangerous assumption is to presume competence with a person. So we proceed in our communications with people as if people understand what we're saying and can take things in. And we find out from that individual and people who know them well, what's the best way for the individual to access information. So that is presuming competence. I can tell you that every single week, I meet somebody who surprises me. So it may not look at in the beginning that they are as capable and as competent as and as communicative as they actually are. So I have come to the place in my life that I'm not making assumptions about anyone and I'm presuming competence, because presuming competence with ability is the least dangerous assumption. And I mentioned this next one before, all have equal value in our world, and they are all part of our classroom community and general community. So I don't make a distinction between what people call the haves and the have-nots. Is to me, everybody has equal value. Also, when we're talking about school and we're talking about participation in an inclusion kind of model, we're talking about participation and benefit with lessons and units. And stay tuned, because I'm going to be talking about that in just a minute when I talk about universal design. The next one is the best way to proceed with an individual is find out what their abilities are, what are their interests. They are the key things to addressing disability. So learning about somebody's abilities and passions and interests may be the key to addressing an area that is difficult for that person. I'll give you an example. There's a student that I met. His name is Adam. And in school, Adam had a really tough time with spelling. And he was getting failing grades on spelling tests. And it was not a great thing for him. What was one of Adam's abilities? He could actually do rap, and he could do things that he would remember long chains of things, etc., using rap or putting things to a rap beat. Guess what a wise teacher did with Adam? They put his spelling words to a rap beat and they let him rap the words out. All of a sudden, Adam is able to spell. So it's taking a challenge area, spelling, and pairing it with an ability area that he does well, an interest area, a passion area, and all of a sudden, spelling comes more easily and more naturally for Adam. So that's an example of abilities and interests and passions being the key to addressing disability. So that was the first one, is looking at diversity is good. The second one is embracing learner passions and interests. And this one is called, I've written a couple books about this. One is called Just Give Him the Whale. And another one is Pedro's Whale. This is a story about a student named Pedro who really loved whales a lot. And one day in school, they were doing math in kindergarten. And Pedro wasn't doing math, he was playing with a whale that he brought to school with him. And I've actually got a whale here that I'm putting forward on the screen. It's a whale papa. So what happened is Pedro had a great teacher, and she said, Pedro, right now, we're not doing whales, we are doing math. And she said, I'm going to take your whale and put it on the choice table. And when you're done with your math work, you can choose to use your whale. Well, what happened is Pedro hid under the table and he started crying. And I think the teacher felt bad. And the principal actually was walking by the door, and she came into the classroom and asked Ms. Tamayo, who was the teacher, she said, what's wrong with Pedro? And Ms. Tamayo said, Pedro brought a toy to school, and students are not supposed to play with toys during the class, but he can have it after he's done with his work with choice time. And so the principal said, new things are scary for Pedro. His whale helps him feel safe and do his best work. If you want Pedro to do his best work, just give him the whale. And so this actually started the teacher thinking about, rather than taking the whale away, his passion and interest, how can we use it to support him? So she gave the whale back to him, but all of a sudden, she started using some new things. So for math, for counting in kindergarten, she has manipulatives for students, which were little blocks. The teacher, Ms. Tamayo, put little pictures of whales on Pedro's blocks. All of a sudden, he's wanting to count. And then she started something new too. When he finished work, she would put a stamp. This was a self-inking stamp of a whale on Pedro's paper. All of a sudden, he's working hard to finish his work. And these were a couple of really simple changes that were brought forward, pictures of whales and a whale stamp. And all of a sudden, what the teacher did is she paired Pedro's interest with his schoolwork, and all of a sudden it elevated the way that he was doing his work and finishing work. So some pretty simple changes had some pretty big impact for this young man. And so it was a great way to support him. So I want to share with you something that I shared in Partners. When I'm meeting a new student, and I meet lots of new students, and the first thing I want to know is, what are their passions and interests? And so they can range from a lot of interesting things. I also wanted to ask Devin, so this is actually something that I find out about people when I meet them. It's a little sheet, and it would be a great thing to put in a student's school folder so teachers can learn and other students can learn about what their interests are. It's a great way to develop a relationship and great way to connect people with socialization. I wanted to bring something forward so people can unmute right now or put this on chat. What are some examples of passions and interests for you if you're a self-advocate, or for your son or daughter if you're a parent? I'm wanting to find out those things. So please bring that forward right now. Let's learn about some of those passions and interests. My example for Pedro was whales, but sometimes there may be some unique ones or some fun ones that connect people together. It's all good. Bring them forward. Bring them on. So Devin, let me know if anything comes forward.
I sure will.
It may take a minute too, because asking people to do something different. Passions and interests.
I have a Minecraft.
Oh, that's a good one. And you know what? There are a lot of learners who like that. So that's another that relates to the example I shared before of an after-school gaming club, which connected kids together with an interest. So Minecraft, for those of you who might not know, I think a lot of us know, is a popular gaming type of game. So there's a lot of kids who like them.
My son is horses. And then my daughter really loves Minecraft, and me, I'm just trying to get back into my interests that I used to enjoy.
Okay, those are nice examples. So I'm really liking the horse one as well as supporting the Minecraft one that we're talking about as well. Thank you for that. Any others that people dare to share? While people are thinking, I'm going to go to the next slide. I'm going to give you an example of a unique interest. So this was a student named Max, who I worked with, and Max was in middle school. So he was in actually seventh grade at the time that I met him. And I'm going to gross people up, but Max's interest is cockroaches. So 1, 2, 3, everybody's kind of going, ooh, that's kind of gross one in some ways. However, let's talk about it. So when the passion or interest is unique, I try to find ways to connect it with some more common areas. So first off, if you think about cockroaches, they are part of insects, and insects are part of science. And guess what Max's middle school had? They actually had a science club that met after school once a week. And something that was really cool is in the science club in the middle school, which we connected Max into, they brought people who had science professions into the science club to talk about their professions. So these were people from the community who worked in a science career. They brought in, considering Max joining the club, an entomologist. By the way, everybody, an entomologist studies bugs. And Max was beside himself, and he actually sought out a lot of information from the entomologist, what it would take to become one, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a great example of something that is a unique interest. Devin, did anything else come forward? Okay, we'll move on. I really like the examples that came forward, and I gave you a unique example. But to sum this area up is the passions and interests, using those in a meaningful manner are a great way to connect people into their school and into the community, recreational types of things, et cetera, et cetera. So the third one is universal design. What universal design is created for is created to bring forward access into school areas. And it's one thing that we talked about in partners. Here's a little review and a little update with it too as well. So the first thing is called representation. It's how we represent curriculum in school. So presenting information in multiple ways. So right now, you are hearing me. You are seeing me in a little screen, and I have a visual that is up here. And I'm going to give the option later on if people want me to share slides at the end. I'm going to send those to Devin So that's information in multiple ways. Also, there are times I'm asking for people to participate by chat or by audio. The next one is creating access through supports. So is there a way to support people by the way we organize information, sometimes making it larger in font, bolder, having notes for students where some of them may be filled out and some of them the student fills out? Those are guided notes, a study guide, a level book. Excuse me. So what a leveled book is if we were doing, for example, I was in a classroom where they were doing the book To Kill a Mockingbird. And this was a classroom where actually the teacher did reading or literacy assessments for the student in their classroom and had the book at 3 different reading levels. It looked like every student had the same book, but every student had a book that was adapted to their literacy level because it was an inclusive classroom. And the great thing is all students could participate because all books had the same characters, had the same storyline, had the same events, and students could read at their own level. There were a couple of students too that used audiobooks to be able to participate, and then everybody could participate in the assignments and the classroom discussion. It was a great inclusive way to proceed. Those are called leveled books, and I mentioned audiobooks too as well. Also, the next one with representation, apps and software which add voice, highlight text, allow for dictation, and support learning in various ways. There was a really cool one that I experienced in a school. Students were doing little mini speeches about their projects, so like project summaries, and the students had the choice. If they didn't want to speak themselves, they could program in their little speech or summary into something called an avatar app, and the avatar would give the speech. Pretty cool, you know, when you think about that. So if somebody's scared of giving a speech or presenting, that would be a great way to include everybody. The next one area is called engagement. This is individuals having choice for how they do their work. So teachers might give the choice. People can work alone, in a pair, in a small group, at a table, on the floor, using technology. So some students might have the choice of either writing, keyboarding, or maybe dictation to be able to write a small mini essay, for example. And then the next one is allowing individuals to demonstrate learning in the manner they do best. So some students do best with writing or keyboarding or talking out ideas or physically or graphically representing something. So the last area is called expression. Some kids or students do well with traditional tests, but others do not. So thinking about options, could students do a project? Could they take an oral test? Could they make a model? Could they create a film? Could they give a demonstration, create a portfolio? And there are many different ways that teachers are bringing this forward. We definitely know something is something with us, our standardized tests. So what I share with teachers is you don't have to teach towards a standardized test. What you need to do is teach your curriculum. And I say, teach that in a creative, innovative way that is engaging for kids. Then when it comes time for the test, teach them how to take a standardized test, which these days, it's electronic. When I was growing up, we would fill in these little bubbles and blanks with pencil. Once in a while, students do that still too, but it's mainly electronic these days. So if you teach students in an innovative, creative way, which makes sure you're bringing forward all the curriculum, hopefully they'll learn things better. And if they know how to take the standardized test and teachers review that and students have some practice with taking sample questions from the test, hopefully they'll be able to do better on that test because they have learned more and know how to take the test. I hope that makes sense. So that's the universal design area. Remember, this area is designed for creating access. And what this does is it creates processes, materials, spaces, and additional practices that embrace the widest range of abilities and needs. And it's a commitment to the most important thing about universal design for learning is accessibility, so that everybody can be part of the classroom, everybody can learn, everybody can be included. So it's something that is very important. I love universal design for learning. And if anybody wants slides, this last slide, which actually summarizes it, is a great slide to think of. So the next one is co-teaching. So this is a general education classroom that has students with and without IEPs and has a general education teacher and a special education teacher that teach together in the same classroom. In all schools that I work with these days, co-teaching exists, and most of them that I do not work with and have visited have co-teaching. So here are some different models for making that work. And if people want slides, this is a great slide to take to a meeting, as well as the universal design for learning slide as well, if you're trying to advocate some things for your son or daughter. So supportive teaching is when one teacher is leading, the other is supporting students. They can switch who's doing the lead. And sometimes when students are doing classroom work, both teachers are supporting all students. Parallel teaching is when each teacher takes a different group in the classroom. They can rotate who works with what group. And we encourage a variety of different types of groups. So sometimes there may be a catch-up group for students who missed information or are not understanding something. And that's different people at different times can be in a flexible group like that. Station teaching. So if you had me for partners as one of the presenters, we did some stations. Remember, you rotated to music where you brainstorm ideas for supports for different curricular areas like reading, writing, math skills, etc. That's an example of a station learning model. By the way, South Dakota rules with that one. You guys do so great with that one. So thank you all for that. Complementary teaching is when one teacher is leading, the other is supporting with audio, extending things, paraphrasing things, or visual. So maybe putting forward visuals or putting forward keywords, using slides, things like that, where they both come together that way. Virtual facilitative is one that came forward during the pandemic. So it might be two teachers doing what I'm doing now together. So presenting when students are in a virtual model, and one might be leading, the other might be doing student chat, could be doing finding out about questions students have. So if you think about myself right now and Devin has been my co-teaching teacher in a complementary teaching model and virtual facilitative as well. So she's done both of those. things. One teach, one make multisensory. So this is one person leading, one person creating a multisensory experience. Like, for example, acting something out using exciting visuals, film clips. Maybe teachers are telling stories. They're bringing teaching and learning to life. Team teaching is when both teachers plan, teach, and assess together. And there's two types. One could be each teacher is doing a different part of the lesson, and the other is when they both go back and forth. That's called tag team teaching. It's really exciting. The next model is called students as co-teachers. So this is when students are doing something in a leadership role in the classroom. So it might be students doing a demonstration, a leadership role in a group, like team leader, or students teaching something to other students, and you can rotate who's doing the teaching. The last one is hybrid models. So it's creative combinations. So if you have, for example, a student-led station, that's a combination between students as co-teachers and station teaching. So I wanted you all to be informed of the latest research on co-teaching. There are 10 models. It's happening in most schools. This is something that our partners members may want to advocate for. So this information is for you. There are so many positive gains with co-teaching. It can have positive impact with student learning, academic improvement, and social skills. So think about, they have two teachers modeling things and two teachers bringing forward their teaching techniques and bag of tricks. You're increasing the student to teacher ratio. So there are two teachers in the classroom. It's a more diverse class list. So what's happening is it may be diverting as self-contained or separate learning for students into learning together. And the special education teacher comes with that. So exciting type of thing. Think about if two teachers bring their bags of tricks forward, there's more research proven teaching strategies. Teachers are modeling community together. They're modeling a collaborative relationship. And teachers who are making it work feel that they've really learned from one another, and they create a sense of belonging and fun with one another. And when one teacher is leading and one teacher is paraphrasing, and both are contributing to the teaching, students get more, oh, I get it now moments, which is increasing student understanding, and also student assessment is going up for both learners with IEPs and learners who don't have them. The last area, number 5, is things school districts have done to become more inclusive. So sometimes a leadership retreat for people who are leaders or administrators in the school district, book studies. So a lot of different books on inclusion. There can be a book study in each school in the district. People use sometimes my book called From Disability to Possibility. There are other ones, Paula Kluth, you're gonna love this kid. Mara Sapan Shevins, Widening the Circle is a great book. So there's lots of different great books out there. Having inclusion teams in schools and a district level. And I say, as part of these teams, have students and parents be part of the teams, visiting other places, because sometimes it's hard to believe in something you haven't seen before. Thinking about professional development and development for parents, thinking big, starting small, sharing what's going on with piloting and model demonstration, and expanding that as you go. So we are at the point where I'm fulfilling my promise. I'm saying this is a point for any questions, comments, things like that. I'm going to stop the share of my screen, and anybody can bring forward anything at this point. I am a man of my word. And so, any questions, commentary? And I have a question too for everybody. Would you like me to share my slides with Devin now that you know what's there? Would this be helpful in your work and your advocacy as a partners member? So I'm interested in finding that out too. So bring it on. It can be through your audio. You can unmute your microphone, or you can bring it forward to Devin on chat. So Devin, I'll see what comes forward from people. I'm really glad we had the amount of people who joined us today.
It looks like Amanda has a question.
Okay, thank you, Amanda.
Well, I didn't have a question. I just was saying yes, please, to the slides.
Oh, slides, absolutely. Amanda, I will send them to Devin, and Devin will in turn share them to everybody. And I want to give permission right away. My big goal is making inclusion work in the world. So I pointed out a few slides that I think are helpful. So one that was an example was the universal design for learning ideas. These are for the classroom. The next one that I shared was a good one to bring forward were co-teaching models. A third one that I didn't mention were the ways that school districts are making inclusion work, that list of ideas that was at the end. So those are some, feel free to duplicate that and share with your teams, and because those are important. That's a way that all partners members make inclusion happen and bring it forward. So it's my honor if people are bringing that forward and using that. Thank you, Amanda, for saying yes, please. I am happy to oblige. Right after I'm done, I will send Devin the slides so that they can be everybody's.
Sounds good. And thank you for the refresher.
Thank you. You are just so wonderful. I'm sorry I had to talk so much, but this one has a fair amount of content. But feel free to bring anything forward now. I just wanted to make sure I got that in so that it's a refresher and you remain in the know about inclusion.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. I know that some of our youth team, they were on here at one point. I don't know if they are now. But so I know we talked about like the co-teaching, but like with the student, that part. Is that something that could be worked into? Yeah, like something that could be worked into an IEP. I know my daughter, like she was really, really good at math. And so the teacher allowed her to come up and help with that. Is that a strategy that might work?
Absolutely. And there's so many different ways. So sometimes having a student become a teaching assistant is a students as co-teachers model. By the way, Devin, what you just shared, the research conclusively supports that. Is student leadership is something that is very important for students to get some examples and to get some I would say participation and exposure within it can be different things in different ways. So I mentioned demonstration. We just mentioned the idea of a student, like maybe a teaching assistant, which Devin had shared. Also, a leadership role in a group. So a student could be a team leader. You can rotate who does that. Also, kids, maybe being an expert about something that is their passion and interest, and other students could interview them. That's a leadership role. And anything that students do with one another to help one another, that's a leadership role. Also thinking about too, if you have an assigned role for students. So for example, they may be in a group and you have someone that's the team leader. You may have somebody that is the note taker. You may have somebody that is the sharer. You may have somebody that's doing the technology, that's the media master. Um, there may be somebody who is the participation manager, making sure everybody's participating. So there can be so many ways this is brought forward. The really great thing, Devin, with what you shared too, is this can, if you find the right thing that works for a student with leadership, it can increase their self-esteem. And self-esteem and learning go hand in hand together. So you can actually increase the students, we would say, overall achievement in school by bringing forward leadership that works. For some students, there may be some forms of leadership that could be intimidating. So you might not want to ask a student to do something leadership wise with getting up, like say in math class, and share how they solved a problem without finding out first if that might work for the student. For some students, asking them to share how they solved a problem might need to be assigned the day before so they can prepare for that. Or some students, it may be easy to do on the spot. What I share with teachers is like when they're doing work, if you see a student, oh, wow, that student has the correct answer, they could share something to the group, and maybe that the teacher would touch base with them before and say, wow, you did a nice job on that. Would you be willing to share this with the class? And if they say yes, great, they have the correct answer. If they say no, I think it's important for the teacher to honor that because it may be intimidating for certain students. And at the same time, maybe ask the student, are there ways that we could bring this forward that would make you feel comfortable? For example, maybe doing it together with another student, or the example that I gave of an avatar app where they could program in something and the avatar gives the demonstration. So thank you for that question, Devin. That is beautiful. Your example was great. Anything else that people want to bring forward? This is, I think, a group that I can tell is on the deep end by what you have brought forward, which excites me very much that South Dakota is taking ownership of doing refreshers for people. And these are concise information pieces online to make sure that you stay relevant and current. And so some of this information has been very much updated based on current research and methodology, especially the co-teaching stuff right now for people. Anything else for the good of our cause? Because I know you still have some things to do as a group. So if you don't need me anymore, I'll get out of your way.
I was just going to ask, what do you think? What do you see as like a big problem in special education right now?
I think to me, the big problem, and this has been something that has been over time, is people that have not stayed current with the research and are staying stuck in a different educational period of time that don't have the belief and that all students can live, learn, work, and recreate together, which is part of a quality of life. And as you know, what I just said, part of that is learning together. All the research exists to make inclusion work. And for those people that are standing in the way, get out of the way, get current, get educated. Schools are very different than the day and time that I went to school. So if I was staying stuck into the way that high school looked when I went to high school, we would be in trouble because there has been so much evolvement. Just think of technology alone. Think about how technology has opened the doors to include people for communication, for participation, for universal design for learning. So what I think is the biggest problem is people who are standing in our way. Step aside, keep advocating for this because research backs what you're saying. Use those slides that we talked about today because that will really help in our advocacy. As I always say with our partners groups, Margaret Mead said a small group of committed people can change the world. And that's the way that I see partners members is we can make a difference in our own communities and our own schools. And I just say, bring it on and don't let people standing in our way make that stop, is collaborate with them and move forward with them. But Devin, just to summarize my answer, that's what I see as the biggest problem is people that are standing in the way. And sometimes they don't have the greatest attitudes about making this work because they never experienced it themselves and they're not open to learning about it. That's a problem for us, but we can actually keep bringing forward the correct, up-to-date information and be great advocates for best practice. That's our role in this. So thank you so much. I'm just so honored you called on me to do a review.
Of course. Thank you so much.
I was impressed by the way this was coming forward too on social media, and it just was very professional. I just want to commend Devin, you and all of the people that are making this happen and everybody that attended today who are the people that are making inclusion happen. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your week and rest of your session. And I will beam out if there is nothing further.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate once again being part of everything. So thank you. And I am going to lead this myself. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just leaving the meeting, but I'm not ending the meeting for all. Devin, do you know that I have that power? I could end this whole thing right now, but I'm going to go away, not all of you. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Does anybody have any questions, comments? Okay. Well, I will let you go for today. I'll get these uploaded onto YouTube, and then I'll send out those links. If you're in Sioux Falls, we have a Canaries game next week, $10 tickets. It'll be a disability awareness or disability pride evening. DRSD will be there, so we'll have a booth and things like that. And then I'll send out information for our next meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a good weekend, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks.